All right, stop whatever you are doing right now, because what is happening in the world of women's tennis right now is absolutely wild. And if you are an Eala fan, you are going to want to buckle up, because this story is about to take you on a full ride. We are talking about superstar Jessica Pegula publicly blasting the WTA, Novak Djokovic stepping into the conversation, a crowd so massive it broke Australian Open records, and a young woman from the Philippines who is not just playing tennis, she is rewriting the entire rulebook. This is the story of how the WTA may have made the biggest mistake of the year and how the sport's biggest names are refusing to let them get away with it. Let us set the scene for you. The Australian Open, one of the four most prestigious tennis tournaments on the planet. Thousands of fans flooding into Melbourne Park from every corner of the globe, ready to witness world-class tennis. And in the middle of all of that, something was happening that nobody in the upper offices of the WTA seemed to be paying nearly enough attention to. Fans, and we are not talking about a handful of enthusiastic supporters, we are talking about enormous, passionate, borderline overwhelming crowds were wrapping themselves around stadiums, lining up outside, pressing against gates, trying desperately to get inside to watch one player. Not a Grand Slam champion, not a former world number one. A 20-year-old young woman from the Philippines named Eala. And the WTA's response to this once-in-a-generation crowd phenomenon? They put her on a small court. A small court. Let that sink in for just a moment. Now, Jessica Pegula is not someone who speaks carelessly. She is one of the top-ranked players in women's tennis right now, a seasoned professional who has competed at the highest levels of the sport and who understands better than most how the machinery of the WTA operates. So when Jessica Pegula decides to open her mouth and call something out publicly, the tennis world listens. And what she said was as direct and as powerful as a forehand winner down the line. She pointed to the scenes unfolding around the courts where Eala was scheduled to play, fans wrapped around stadiums, people standing in impossibly long queues just hoping to get through the doors. And she asked the question that every single person watching should have been asking. Why is this girl not on a bigger court? Pegula did not dress it up. She did not soften the edges. She called it what it was. She said it was disrespectful. Disrespectful to Eala, disrespectful to the fans who had made unbelievable sacrifices to be there. And she is absolutely right, because here is what those fans actually went through to be at the Australian Open to watch their hero compete. We are talking about people who booked international flights, people who arranged accommodation, people who saved up money, requested time off work, coordinated travel plans across families and friend groups, all of it, every single bit of it, just so they could be in the same building as Eala and cheer her on. These are not casual fans who stumbled onto a court between matches. These are devoted, deeply passionate supporters who have followed this young woman's journey and who showed up in numbers that the Australian Open had reportedly never seen before. And when they arrived, when they walked through the gates of Melbourne Park, buzzing with excitement, wearing their flags and their colors, ready to make some noise, what did they find? Overcrowded courts, lines that stretched for what felt like forever, capacity issues that meant some of them could not even get inside. People who had flown thousands of miles ended up watching through gaps in fences or huddled together outside the court listening to the crowd roar within. That is not just a logistical embarrassment. That is a genuine heartbreak for fans who deserved so much better. And it raises a question that the WTA absolutely must answer. How do you look at the kind of crowd that Eala was drawing? How do you see those numbers and that passion and that energy and not immediately think to yourself, we need to put this player on the biggest possible stage? Pegula herself revealed that she had been told this was the best crowd ever witnessed at an Australian Open. The best crowd in the history of the tournament. And the player most responsible for generating that extraordinary atmosphere was being scheduled on courts that could not even hold the people who came to see her. If that is not a scheduling failure of monumental proportions, nothing is. But here is where it gets even more interesting, because Pegula did not stop at criticizing the court assignments. She went deeper. She hinted that the WTA might not be entirely comfortable with what Eala represents. Think about that carefully for a moment. Here is a young woman who has built a fan base that spans all of Asia, who is single-handedly bringing new audiences to a sport that has been trying to expand its reach into Asian markets for years. She is not just a tennis player, she is a cultural bridge. She is a symbol of pride for an entire nation of over 100 million people. She is making tennis relevant in places where it was never relevant before. That should be the WTA's greatest success story of the decade. That should be the thing they are putting on billboards and press releases and social media campaigns. Instead, based on how she has been treated, it seems like the organization is not quite sure what to do with her. And some people are starting to wonder whether that confusion is hiding something more uncomfortable. And if you think the criticism stopped with Jessica Pegula, think again. Because stepping into this conversation is none other than Novak Djokovic. Yes, that Novak Djokovic. The man with more Grand Slam titles than any player in the history of the sport. A man who has won at every level there is to win at, who has seen everything there is to see in professional tennis, and who does not make public statements about young players lightly. Djokovic came out and called Alex Eala the greatest tennis player the Philippines has ever produced. He said she deserves all the respect in the world, and he agreed clearly and without hedging that the WTA's decisions around her scheduling and court assignments had significantly contributed to the chaos and the difficulties that surrounded her matches during the tournament. When the greatest player of all time looks at a situation and says something is wrong here, you do not brush that off. You do not explain it away, you listen. And right now, the WTA should be listening very carefully indeed. But let us take a step back even further, because the Australian Open crowd situation, as outrageous as it is actually just the most recent chapter in a pattern that has been building for some time now. If you have been following Alex Eala's journey through the WTA, you have seen things that have raised eyebrows. You have seen moments where the system seemed to work against her in ways that simply do not happen to other players at her level. And these are not small things. These are incidents that, when you line them up one after another, paint a picture that is very hard to dismiss as coincidence. Let us talk about the Australian Open qualifiers. Eala was in the middle of a critical match, fighting for every point the way she always does, when something extraordinary happened. She hit a ball that was clearly inside the lines, visibly in. The mark on the court was right there for everyone to see, but the call came back out. Now in tennis, that kind of controversy gets resolved in one of two ways. Either the ball is in or the ball is out. You make a ruling and you stand by it. That is how the sport works. That is the standard that has been upheld for generations of competitive tennis. But apparently, when it comes to Alex Eala, different rules apply. Because rather than correcting the out call and awarding her the point, which is what should have happened the moment the mark on the court proved she was right, the officials ordered a replay of the entire point. A replay, in professional tennis, for a ball that was demonstrably, visibly, provably in. What happened next is the moment that will make Alex Eala fans around the world stand up and cheer every single time they think about it, because she did not sit quietly and accept it. She did not smile politely and go back to the baseline. She walked directly to that chair umpire, looked them right in the eye, cool as you like, completely composed and absolutely unflinching. And she said the words that sent a shiver through everyone watching. She said, "I know what you are doing." 5 words. Calm, measured, devastating. She saw exactly what was happening. She named it out loud in front of everyone. And then, because this is who Alex Eala is, she turned around, walked back to the baseline, and won the match anyway. She fought through the questionable officiating, the unfair replay, the pressure of the moment, and she made it all the way to the finals of the Australian Open qualifiers. That is not just talent. That is the mental fortitude of a champion. But wait, we are not done yet, because there was another incident, and this one happened during her match against none other than Iga Swiatek. If you know anything about women's tennis, you know that Iga Swiatek is one of the most dominant players on the tour right now, a multiple Grand Slam champion who has been absolutely ruthless at the top of the game. For Alex Eala to even be competing against a player of Swiatek's caliber is already a remarkable achievement. The match was live, the crowd was electric, the momentum of the game was shifting and building with every point. And then, in the middle of this crucial high-stakes contest, at a moment that could not have been less convenient or more suspicious in its timing, an official decided that was the perfect moment to confront Alex Eala about items in her backpack. Her backpack. In the middle of a Grand Slam match, at a critical stage of play. The disruption was real. The rhythm she had been building was broken. The moment was stolen. And the timing of it left a lot of people asking serious, uncomfortable questions about why that confrontation needed to happen at precisely that point in the match. Now, let us be fair here. Not every bad call is a conspiracy. Not every scheduling decision is malicious. The WTA is a massive organization managing dozens of matches, hundreds of players, and millions of logistical details across tournaments around the world. Mistakes happen. Oversights happen. Poor scheduling decisions happen. But there is a difference between an isolated mistake and a pattern. And what we are seeing with Alex Eala is starting to look a lot more like a pattern than a series of unfortunate coincidences. The questionable officiating during the qualifiers, the backpack incident during the Swiatek match, the court assignments that left record-breaking crowds locked out of her matches during the Australian Open. Add them all together and ask yourself honestly, does this look like bad luck or does it look like something else? Jessica Pegula has asked that question. Novak Djokovic has asked that question. And millions of fans across the Philippines, across Asia, and across the entire world of tennis are asking that question right now. Because they have invested in Alex Eala. They have followed her journey from the junior circuit to the professional tour. They have watched her grow into an electrifying competitor who can hold her own against the best players in the world. They have shown up in numbers that broke records. They have wrapped themselves around stadiums and stood in lines and traveled across oceans, and they deserve to have their investment honored. They deserve to watch their hero compete on the biggest possible stage with the full respect and recognition that she has earned. And here is the thing that the WTA needs to understand, because apparently it has not sunk in yet. Alex Eala is not a novelty. She is not a feel-good story that the organization can trot out when they want to talk about diversity and global reach and expanding the sport's audience. She is a serious, elite, deeply gifted tennis player who is getting better with every single tournament she plays. She is a player who stares down Grand Slam champions and questionable officiating alike and refuses to blink. She is a player who carries an entire nation on her shoulders with grace and composure and a competitive fire that is genuinely extraordinary to witness. She is, as Novak Djokovic himself said, the greatest tennis player her country has ever produced. And she is only 20 years old. The ceiling for what Alex Eala can achieve in this sport is so high, you cannot even see it from here. The WTA has an opportunity right now. They can look at everything that has happened, the record crowds, the legitimate criticism from respected figures like Pegula and Djokovic, the growing international conversation about how Eala has been treated, and they can choose to do the right thing. They can choose to schedule her on courts that can actually hold the crowds she draws. They can choose to ensure that the officiating during her matches is above reproach. They can choose to recognize and celebrate the phenomenon that Alex Eala represents, rather than seeming to manage it from a distance with something that looks dangerously close to indifference. They can get on the right side of history. Because history is being written right now, with or without their participation. Alex Eala is going to keep competing. She is going to keep winning matches that people said she could not win, keep building a fan base that the sport has never seen before, keep being that walking, breathing, backhand-ripping reminder that greatness does not come with a passport restriction. And when the story of this era of women's tennis is told, when people look back at the players who defined this generation, Alex Eala's name is going to be right there at the top. The only question is whether the WTA's name will be remembered as the organization that helped her get there or the organization that tried to stand in her way while legends like Jessica Pegula and Novak Djokovic had to step forward and demand she be given what she deserves. The fans have spoken, the players have spoken. The crowd that wrapped itself around Melbourne Park and refused to be turned away has spoken louder than any press release or scheduling memo ever could. Now it is the WTA's turn to respond. And the whole tennis world is watching to see what they do next. So here is where we hand it over to you, because your voice matters in this conversation and we genuinely want to know what you think. Do you believe the WTA is deliberately overlooking Alex Eala, or do you think this is just poor scheduling and management that got out of hand? Did the WTA completely drop the ball by failing to give her a bigger court despite that massive record-breaking crowd? And do you think that having Jessica Pegula and Novak Djokovic, two of the most respected and decorated names in the sport, speaking out publicly will actually force the WTA to sit down and make real, meaningful changes? Drop everything you are thinking in the comments section below. We want to read every single word. If you are an Alex Eala fan, this is your moment to make your voice heard. Let the WTA know exactly how you feel. And if you are new here, and this kind of deep dive, passionate, no-holds-barred tennis coverage is what you have been looking for, hit that subscribe button right now because we are just getting started. Smash the like button if you think Alex Eala deserves every bit of recognition and respect that is coming her way. And share this video because the more people who know about what is happening, the harder it becomes for anyone to look the other way. We will see you in the next one.